Good afternoon, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about recharging your vehicle's air conditioning system. What's going to be needed, what you should be looking forward to. And the basic premise of today's video is to show you that anybody can do this. It's been racing here this past season in drag racing, and the purpose of this car will be ultimately to be a race car, so I'm not worried about finding and repairing that leak today, but we will show you how to recharge the system, and you'll obviously need a vacuum pump. Now, these gauges and the vacuum pump can all be rented at your local auto parts store. These came from the O'Reilly store right here where I am, and your cans here we picked up pretty relatively expensive. I believe $15 a can is what I've gotten here, and I've got two 12-ounce cans. I know that my vehicle needs 24 ounces, and again, that's another number that you can check with your local auto parts store. You'll also want to make sure that you have a screwdriver, and we'll go over a little bit more why this is important later on, but you're going to want to use this to purge the system, and again, I'll show you that a little bit later. So as with any vehicle, you're going to want to find your air conditioning ports. And I've already removed the caps for mine, but you've got your low side and your high side. Your high side is always going to be the larger side, so it's no real way to mix these things up once you start attaching your hoses. Now, as far as our hoses, as I mentioned before, we've got our low side with the smaller port, our high side with the larger port. The low side is going to be your blue side, or it's going to be the left side, or just make sure that you're checking your gauges properly, that you're using the right size for this. It should be the left side. It's going to be the low side, and you're going to want to get this hooked on to your air conditioning system. Pretty simple. They pull back, push on, and one thing to note, I'll show you here on the high side. With your hoses, pay attention to the way this thing is pointed. To close the valve, you actually want to turn this one open, as if you're opening like a can of soda or a bottle of soda. And the opposite, to open the valve, you want to turn it like you're closing a bottle of soda. So we're going to go ahead and, as I mentioned before, pull up, press on. Fairly straightforward there. We're going to go ahead and open both of these valves wide open. Now, to get our vacuum pump set up, we're going to take this middle hose, or our yellow hose here. We're going to hook it up to one of the suction lines on our vacuum pump. Again, like I said before, all of this stuff can be rented at your local auto parts store. I believe for me, the gauges and the pump together were about $330, and I'll get every bit of that once I bring all of the equipment back. So we've got our middle port, our suction line, connected to the suction line of our vacuum pump. We want to make sure that our lines are open on our gauges, and we're going to turn our pump on. And that pump's going to run, pulling a vacuum, pulling all the air, pulling all the contaminants, any moisture that may be in the lines. That vacuum pump's going to pull all of that out. And we're going to leave that running for about 45 minutes. And I'll catch back with you. Alright, so now that our suction pump has been running for about 45 minutes, I'll let it run a little bit longer than that, and that's just fine. You'll see that on our vacuum gauges, we are down in the suction side. Ideally, you'd want to be closer to that 30 mark, as close to that as you possibly can. We're going to close our valves, close both of our valves here. We're going to turn our suction pump off. Now what we're going to do is we're going to let this sit for another 30 minutes and keep an eye on our gauges here. Make sure that they do not move. So now that we've had this sitting for about 30-45 minutes, we verified that our gauges haven't moved. We're going to run our suction pump for another 30 minutes and open up our valves. And again, the goal here is to make sure that we get every last bit of air, water, oil particle, everything that's in the system back out. Alright, now that it's been sitting here for another 30 minutes, I wanted to let you guys know this is where we're going to start working on our charge. So let's go ahead and cut our valves back off. Make sure these are closed all the way. We'll turn our vacuum pump off, and we can go ahead and disconnect our hose from the vacuum pump. Alright, let's get our vacuum pump out of the way here. Now, what we've done is we've created a vacuum within our system. So, you're going to take your adapter, and this should have come with your manifold gauge set and hose set that you've rented. Take our adapter, put it onto our first can of Freon here. And make sure that's on good and snug. And we're going to screw on our hose for the gauge. Now keep in mind, these don't have to be wrenched tight. There are some good gaskets in here that will create a good seal. You don't have to put a wrench on this, just hand tight is perfectly fine. So we'll go ahead and screw down our valve on our can of Freon. There we go. Heard it open there. Now, this comes the part where we need our screwdriver. Take our screwdriver up here. This is our purge valve. We're going to purge it until we see some Freon start to come out. Now what we've done here is, because we've created a vacuum in the system and we took our vacuum pump off of our yellow line here, that allowed air to get back in that yellow line. We don't want to put air in the system, we want to put Freon in the system. Now that that's taken care of, our line is purged, we're going to go into the car. Whew, and now we're in the car. These hot July days, I tell you, in North Carolina are a constant reminder of why we're working on our air conditioner today. Anyway, so now that we're in the car, we want to go ahead and start the vehicle. And if you can hear me over the exhaust, we're going to make sure our air conditioner is turned on and that our fan is going. What this is going to do is this is going to allow our air conditioner compressor to sense when we start adding the Freon, and the compressor will kick on because we have our air turned on. So now that the vehicle's running, we've got the air conditioner turned on, temperature set to cold, we've got our fan going. Let's step back outside, back to our gauges and our Freon. Alright, everything should be set inside the vehicle. Get these gauges over here where you can see them a little bit. Now that we've got everything running on the car, the compressor is going to kick on once we start allowing the flow of Freon into our system. Now, the way to do that is we're going to open up our low side. We're going to leave our high side closed, and we're going to monitor that for when the compressor begins to kick on. So let's go ahead and open up our valve here. We'll allow the Freon to start flowing into the car. You'll see that right there. As the pressure builds up, the compressor is going to see that. Our pressure on our high side, you see, started to jump. And we can finish opening up our low side valve. It's important to keep this can moving so that the gases and the Freon inside of the can don't freeze and stick to each other. Continue to move this side to side while we open up our valve. It won't take long at all. before the vacuum that we've created and the compressor do their job and suck all of the Freon out of this can. During this time, the can's going to get really cold, so if you need some gloves, feel free to grab those. It's not going to be too cold that it's going to harm you, but if you're sensitive to cold, go ahead and grab you some gloves. The can has started to warm up now, and I see the flow of Freon has diminished, so we're going to go ahead and prep this can to be discarded and get our second can ready to hook up. To do so, we're going to go ahead and cut off our low side valve. Go ahead and shut that off all the way. Once that's turned off, we can open up our tap here. All the way up. And instead of taking the tap off of the yellow lines, we can actually take the tap straight off the can. And that's an empty can. Let's go ahead and get our second can screwed on and prepped to add to the system. Now that that's on there, we can tighten our tab. And remember, we're working with a brand new can of Freon here. Just like the last time, we want to go and purge our line until we see some Freon flowing. There it is. So let's open up our low side. Finish dumping our second can in. Now some people do this a little bit different. When I get to the last bit of my cans, I do like to elevate them a little bit just to help let all of that Freon flow and get into the system. As you can see here, our Freon flow has stopped. We're going to go ahead and close our valve. Make sure that's good and tight. Open up the valve on the Freon can. And discard our can. Now, at this point in time, we want to go into the engine bay, back to our valves on the actual AC system and close those valves. So now let's make sure we're following our directions here on the actual caps. We want to close each valve by unscrewing in this case. Unscrew all the way. And these simply lift up and pop right off. Just like that. If you are renting these tools, I will ask you to do a favor. If not for me, do it for the next guy that may be renting these tools as well. Make sure all your cables are coiled back up, placed inside the box. Make sure the compressor gets put back in its box. It's a great thing that O'Reilly's does. It's a great thing that some of the other auto parts stores do, is they do these loaner tool programs where you can go and rent these tools, and all you have to do is pay for the price of the tool. And then when you bring it back, you get a full refund on that amount. It actually doesn't cost you anything to rent this stuff. So please take care of it. Make sure it gets back, put in the box, and returned, and you'll get your full refund for the rental price. That's it. I hope I was able to help out anybody that is looking to take care of their own air conditioning system. Again, if you're trying to discover a leak, that may be something that you want to take somewhere else. But if you know that it's a small leak or not too worried about fixing the leak right away, this is a great way to completely pull your vacuum and refill your entire air conditioning system with Freon the proper way. Again, as always, Thanks for watching. I hope you subscribe. Check out some of our other videos, and I hope to get back to you soon.